Hey everyone, this is Mike Andes, and you're listening to the Business Bootcamp podcast. Today we're going to be taking a question from a course member actually that wrote in about their team and their culture, what they're trying to change, and the problems they're having. We're going to read that question, and today I'm being joined again by my office manager, second in command, Liz, and she's going to be helping us today, kind of dissecting what this question is all about and how you can improve your team culture if it's become toxic or inefficient in dealing with your people. So, before we end today's show though, a big thank you to today's sponsor, which is Gusto. That's Gusto. You need to go to gusto.com/bootcamp, and they're giving just the podcast listeners 90 days free trial. So usually you get 30 days. They're giving us an entire quarter, 3 months worth of a free trial just for us listeners. So check it out today. You can put your employees in there within about 10 to 15 minutes. You just got to put a little bit of information in, and then you can be running payroll through there, running your benefits, really tracking a lot as far as time and other tax reasons for your employees. Check it out today. Go to gusto.com/bootcamp and redeem that 90-day trial today. So before we get started today's show, again, this is a course member from landscapebusinesscourse.com. Typically, this type of question I would answer on Landscape Business Course podcast. However, I thought it was a question that was relevant really to all industries, regardless of whether you're in landscaping or in computer tech or regardless of what you do. This is really about team culture question, and it's really about how to build that within your company. And so I wanted to bring in Liz because she's really involved in that aspect of the business with my companies. And as we grow in things, she really assists in hiring to just the general communication within the company. And she calls herself, she's the facilitator of communication within the company. And so I'm going to have her read the question, and we will roll from there. And we have not discussed what we're going to be talking about, but we'll just kind of go raw and see where we go from there. So without any further delay, this is Liz, and she's going to go ahead and read this question. It was emailed in just a few days ago.
Hey Mike, so this was our first year hiring. We have hired 7 employees so far, and only 4 are currently with us. We fired the first guy because he was a slacker, and we kept getting a lot of callbacks. The second guy that left, we actually hired out of prison. He had turned his life around, rededicated his life back to the Lord, so as a Christian company, we wanted to give him a chance. He was doing great. He actually had a lot of mowing experience and moved right into management. He was doing fantastic. Until about a month ago, he got a horrible attitude and eventually was spreading that attitude through the other guys like cancer. He didn't come into work one day. We wrote him up, then he gave us 2 weeks. After a couple more days of his attitude, we told him he didn't have to finish. Then we hired a guy to be on our landscaping team and eventually be trained to lead that, and he just never showed up to work. His first day was supposed to be Monday. Now the last guy we just let go was my husband's cousin. He was having a lot of attitude and told my husband he refused to do something, so we had to let him go, and now there is so much family drama, it's crazy. I just feel like we're not doing something right. The morale with the 4 team members we have left seems low. I ask them many times a week, what are things we can improve on, etc., and they don't say much. I ask them if they feel appreciated, and they say yes. I just don't know if we're doing something wrong or if you ever experienced this when you were first building your team. We are trying to set a good base so that when we get a few good ones, we can build off of that. But I feel like that will never happen, and I am so depressed. From Jessica.
So what's your initial thoughts on that?
Well, so many things come to mind. It is important to have all of the team on board when you're hiring. Maybe a couple different people that decide together. Have to all 3 agree that the person is a good fit for your team before they come on. The pros and the cons of that. That's the first thing that comes to mind. How about you?
Well, let's kind of just go through it like how she wrote. So basically, just to summarize, so they had 7 employees this year, and now they're down to 4 because they've lost 3. The first one, let's see here. The first guy they fired was a slacker and kept getting a lot of callbacks. Second guy was hired. He was hired out of prison, but he had made some life changes, and so they wanted to give him a chance. Started out great. A month later, got a horrible attitude and didn't show up to work. They wrote him up, and then he ended up not even giving his 2 weeks notice. The third guy was that quit or was fired was a guy that was actually the related to the husband of the person who asked this question. So, and then they had to let him go because he was having an attitude and a sense of entitlement, not having to do what the owners were wanting him to do because he was related to them. So I think let's kind of like talk about those three different scenarios, because I think those are kind of three different things. But I think first of all, like you said, it really comes down to the hiring process, and a lot of that, some of that can be detected in an interview.
Yes, so we could tell a little bit about how we do that.
Yeah.
So when someone wants to give an application, we don't have a paper application. They go online, they send us over an application. Once we receive that, we set them up for an interview, and whichever of us can do the preliminary meeting with them does. If Mike isn't around, then I'll do a preliminary, and then we'll set up another time for him to meet with them. We're very transparent in that we tell them about our company, where our company's going, what we're looking for, and so they know right up front, do they even want to be a part of the company? Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, like, they kind of go through that first initial, I don't know, like, we try to weed some of them out.
Yeah, so we tell them the positives and negatives for working.
Well, even like yesterday,
for us.
even the other day, like when that guy came in for an interview, like, what was the thing that turned you off right away when you were just overhearing him talking?
Yeah, so our office is very small. So those of us that are working, we just continue working, serving customers. And if there's an interview, it's not behind closed doors. They're just out there, kind of while we're doing everything else.
Especially the first one.
Yeah, so I was busy doing other things with customers, but I would hear just little bits and pieces. And what I kept hearing was a negative thing about his boss at his last job. Every single one of them, there was a problem with the boss and the leadership. So I knew those are red flags right away to us, because if they'll do that with all leadership, any kind of headship over them, then it'll be the same with us.
So the first person that they fired was a slacker. They got a bunch of callbacks. We know in our industry that's a bad thing. Usually it means that they weren't communicating well with either their team lead or the customer, or they're just lazy and not doing a good job. What are some of the things you could ask in a hiring scenario that might weed them out?
Well, we're very transparent with them right away in that we say, who did you work for? And we ask them right in the interview to give us their numbers. So we take it live right off their phone. And if we contacted them, what would they say about you?
Right. And that's important. But I think too, like, even when we ask them for their contacts, you can tell a lot just by, some of them won't even have, like, they won't even remember the name of the direct report. Sometimes they're just making that up. Usually they are. They're like, you can tell if you ask, like, who could I call for an interview? Or for who could I call for a reference? Who would be a good, direct report? And they're, like, fumbling around, or, like, they all of a sudden can't find their number in their phone. There's probably something there.
Right. So you can go with your gut a lot of the time. Within 30 seconds of them walking in the door, I usually know. 90% of the time, yes or no. So one of our employees that we have hired was in the office the other day, and she said, wow, how do you do that? She said, what did you think when I came in first time? And so I said, things that popped up right away, I said, was your body language, good eye contact, you sat up straight, you had direct answers, and whether you were nervous or not, you were still confident in your answers. You never complained about the people you worked for in the past. You just talked about your vision for the future and what you wanted and why you wanted to be a part of our company.
And I think as far as that first person that they fired, the slacker, like, person who didn't work hard, that could be sniffed out by getting references. Like,
yes.
Now, like, for us now, we've had a few where we've had to fire them after hiring them pretty fast. However, we've gotten better as far as seeing the red flags afterwards and then making sure we cover ourselves later on the road. And one of those is now, like, they have to have a reference check. And
right.
So even if that's like the latest Garrison that we hired, he didn't have couldn't get a work reference for him because he's younger, but we had someone who worked with him from our company out doing landscaping jobs by themselves and was able to give, like, a really good solid reference. And so I think the slacker one, if they're a slacker, if that's generally their personality and the way that they work, that would be reflected in previous employers, and you could get that information from them.
Right. We did have a three-tiered hiring process before, which you've kind of eliminated now. But the first one was,
which we still use in the spring when there's a high volume of
right.
applicants.
So we would have a career fair where we'd have several people because there was such a high volume of people applying, and we'd have a career fair and we'd tell them all the pros and cons and all about our company and its growth. If they still want an interview, then the next day we'd do a work bee, and it'd be like 1 hour with our guys working, and our guys can detect it right away as well, and we would weed out more from that second interview, and then we'd have an actual interview with three of us: office manager, project manager, and the owner.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think between, those levels of meetings and then the reference checks, that first person you should be able to detect that. Like if they're a slacker and they're just not going to work hard, that should be detected pretty easily in an interview process.
I would also be really careful with friends and family.
That's the third person. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that.
So if you hired a family member or somebody that you knew, it's likely you approached them and asked them for a job because you had already sensed qualities in them. We have another employee the same way. We had kind of watched them, wondered if they'd be a good fit, and then we approached them and asked them. We have had others that are interested, and we're just pretty sure it wouldn't work. Some family is the same. Sometimes family works incredibly well, and other times, as you found, it can create a lot of hurt and drama, and it's really not worth sacrificing your relationships for that. Another challenge with that, you said that you're Christian, so that I'm assuming you go to the same church or involved in the same kind of events. I said that gets challenging when there's 4 or 5 of you and you all need to be off at the same time as well. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, like, even when it comes to friends and family, asking yourself the question, like, eventually this employer-employee relationship ends. And then you have to ask yourself, how is that going to affect the personal relationships? And ask yourself, is it worth hiring them?
Right.
Because if it's not worth, like, that's why so many times, husband-wife relationships in business is so stressful, is because it's always going to affect the relationship. Like, you live with them 24/7. There's no off time, right?
And it's also very important to have boundaries of that relationship, that you're professional when you're at work. We are related. Mike and I are related, and we had an employee that didn't know that for 7 months, and that's because at work we're working. We're taking care of the business. We're taking care of our people. We're not talking about us, our family, anything like that. Right. It's all business.
All right, so let's get back to the question and kind of give hopefully some actionable steps as far as what she can be doing. Because I think at the end of the day, like, weeding out bad hires, a lot of that can be done, especially in the landscape industry, in the interviewing process. But once they are on the team, as we've talked about, we're trying to be able to take the people that are slackers or a B player but has potential, and then cultivate them into grade A people. Right. And to do that, though, you have to have a strong team culture. So let's talk about that. But I feel it's like really more like the secondary thing behind the hiring process, nailing that down to get the right people on the bus, but then figuring out where they should be on the bus, and then creating that culture is another, aspect of the question.
Right. First of all, Jessica, we sympathize with you. We know it's really challenging. You're just trying to get the route done, the jobs done, and then you're dealing with difficulties with the team. It just kind of makes it for a frustrating day.
And when you don't feel like you're on the same page, because we don't have that. Like, even when we have really bad days, or even there's people who are going through stuff, like, at the end of the day, we all are, like, on the same page from a business level.
Oh, another thing that is hugely helpful is that they feel connected to everyone that they're communicating with all day. That could be a huge part of it, is that they don't feel accountable to someone, or we have this line, don't feel like you're out in the wilderness and there's nobody to help you out. We have a WhatsApp app that we use that we all communicate as a team, and we're in constant contact all day long. And that is key. We have some newer employees, maybe haven't done a certain mowing route before. Even this past week, very frustrated, almost in tears, like he's wanting to do a good job so well and so much. And then he had just sent me a WhatsApp video and then some text and his frustration. And right away, 5 minutes, we had another guy over to his job site to help him. And I think if people feel supported, then they want to try hard for the team as well.
Mm-hmm. So the question was raised as far as asking people on the team how they can make the company better, and not getting really any response from that. And then asking them, are they happy and satisfied working there, and them saying yes, but then knowing that morale is low.
Right.
Like, obviously people go through stuff as employees.
Yeah.
Like, no one's robots. we're dealing with humans that have emotions and go through life issues.
And especially in this industry, lawn care, landscaping, service stuff, there's a lot going on all the time, and there's going to be days that really aren't that great dealing with customers and everything.
Yeah, but like, so what would you say for her to be as far as creating that culture of when you ask how can we make this place better? Like, in my opinion, they're not there yet in our team culture to ask that question.
Yeah.
I feel it's more about they should be asking them how to, like, when I was taking over the gym and we had the first meeting with the team that was going to be starting there after firing the old folks that were working there, the first thing I told them was, like, the business will take care of itself if the customers are happy. The customers will be happy if we as a team and our culture as our team here internally is strong.
Right.
And so I feel that asking the question to their employees now, how can we make the business better, more efficient, blah, 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 trying to get them involved on that side, which is really positive, and I've said that before. But to do that this early in the game, the number one thing needs to be that the team culture internally is strong.
Right, but you have to be so humble to even bring this up to your team, to ask them where you could do better, where everything could be better for them, what would make them more feel like coming to work. And I wouldn't ask in a group. You can ask in a group, but it's more better like when, maybe not at the end of the day when everybody's exhausted either, but at some point when there's a good rapport with you and that employee, just say, hey, have you noticed anything we can improve on around here? I was thinking run stuff by them. Make them
I don't
feel...
even think, though, yet they're at that point of asking how they can improve the business. I think the number one question is how can we improve this place for you?
So take it to a personal level.
Yeah, and the team. Yeah. Like, I think if they get the buy-in on a team level first, then the next level is them. Right now, the employees don't care about the business.
Right.
They don't care. Right? And if that's not established, they're not going to be coming with ideas that will make it more efficient and the business better, bottom line better, etc.
Right. So I guess if the employees caught that you cared about them more than the business, more than making money first, then you'd create a good team culture and then could...
And that's where it starts. Like it comes from, like, it starts from the top.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you genuinely do not care about your people, it doesn't matter what you say or the programs you implement or the questions you ask them. If you do not care about them, they will know.
Yeah.
And I think so oftentimes I talk about a lot about caring for your people, and a lot of people will listen to that and bet, okay, that's the right thing to do, and feign it. But your people, the people underneath that you're paying on employees, they will sniff it out. They know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, the employees are probably right now talking to each other about all the things that are negative in the company, but they would never say it, like you said, in a group setting. But the reason they haven't said it in a group setting, or even maybe in a personal setting, is that they haven't been given the latitude to do that. They haven't been given a safe zone to do that.
Right.
We give them, in our company, a safe place to disagree with us. We ask them to disagree with us. Not to improve the company, not to improve the processes or make us more profitable, but to disagree with how we're doing things from a hiring standpoint, whether we're doing something wrong internally. Like, we encourage that, and like we talked about last week, like, even when there is a fissure or a problem within the organization, we just address it, like, straight on.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, these hires, when you have someone that is slacking, you can turn, obviously it's a negative thing, but I think you can use that really positively to then look at the team that you do have still on board and say, hey, look, this individual didn't hold up to what we're all about from a cultural standpoint. They didn't show up to work, didn't work hard, they didn't do X, Y, and Z, and really use it as a positive to show what the standards are, and that you care enough about the team to fire that person even when you're really busy.
Right, and that the person coming in knows you might be a fantastic person, you might be great at lawn care, landscaping, sales, blah, 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 but if you don't fit with our team, then you don't fit with our team.
And that goes back to the hiring process. Like, that's the number one thing we talk about if someone has a little bit of potential.
Yeah, so now they're on the team, and they're this amazing, awesome person, but maybe they have an ego, and there's something else going on, and every single team member you're getting this vibe from, like, that it's not been a good day after they've been with them. You need to know that. Like, you want to weed that out right away and have the guts to fire them for the rest of your team's sake.
Yeah. Okay, so taking this back, what's like the concrete thing that you would tell her? Like, I think I would say this at your next team meeting, have a really open conversation. Everyone needs to be sitting down. You want to have notes in front of you. You want this to be coming from you. Mm-hmm. Like, no notes. This needs to come from your heart. Right. And you need to say, hey, look, I see there's problems with our culture, not the business. This is not about the business. This is about the team. Get the team right first. Then worry about the business. I think at your next team meeting, you sit down, you say, hey, look, there's problems within our team. We don't trust. We don't communicate. We don't. And I need, this is the business owner talking. I need to know how I can better support you in your job. And I need to know how we can fix together, how we can fix the communication and the trust issues that we have right now. Because without that, we're not going to be a successful business. We might not have jobs in a year if we can't make this work. And number one thing for this company is that we work together as a team. If that happens, the customers will be happy, business will continue to roll in, referrals will happen, sales will go up, and we'll be able to increase our prices, and we'll have a net profit margin, we'll be able to grow the company, and things will be fine. But it all starts with the 5 people, the 6 people in this room right now, and I want you to be honest enough with me, and to do that, I want to be able to take each of you aside at the end of today. I want you to think about what I've said this morning, and I want you to think about what we can do to make your job better and improve internally how we can run this team. Mm-hmm. What are the things that I, as the business owner, have been doing that are keeping you from showing up to work and being present?
Mm-hmm. It might be hard to do that at first. It takes a lot of inner fortitude maybe to do that if you know there's some things you need to work out in yourself. A lot of humility to say that kind of thing. So you might be something you'd want to look inward and am I a disciplined person? Are they seeing me work hard and be connected and care and that type of thing too, so that you're ready when you make those kind of statements to them.
And I think when you say those statements, you're being vulnerable because you really don't know what's going to come up at that meeting. But that's the level of vulnerability you're asking them to have when you ask them personally these questions.
Right.
You want them to talk at the end of that day when you meet them individually and say exactly what's on their mind.
Right.
You don't want them to think that they're going to get fired. You don't want them to think you're going to take it personal. They need to be given a safe zone to say whatever they want.
Right. Yeah, so that in the future, you have the kind of relationship that it's in the middle of the day and they text you and they're like, this is definitely not working. I need help right now. And the whole team just swoops in and helps them out. That's what that will create.
And you want to be able to even say to them, like, look, we are always going to get along together or agree together, I should say, on how things should be run here. But when we don't, we need to passionately disagree, debate. But at the end of the day, we all know that we're on the same team and we have the same common goal. Mm-hmm. And so even like when you and I might debate about things, how it should be done in the business, or whether it be a hiring decision, or even when our project managers get together and we're talking about how a job is going down. For some people, they peep their head in there and think we're literally all like arguing. But really, it's nothing. Like, we're just all very passionate what we're doing, and we've given them all latitude and a safe zone where they can disagree with me.
Right.
And say straight to my face that I'm wrong.
Right.
And if you don't have that level, they're going to hold it inside. They will talk about it with every other person, and that's what spreads as a cancer.
Yeah.
Because they're not giving us like, I feel at our company right now, if someone said something in a truck to another guy negative, that person would say, you should say that to Mike. Or you should say that at the next team meeting.
Yeah.
Do you think that?
For the most part, I would say.
Like, I know there's some, especially the new people.
Or it would eventually come out because we have other transparent conversations.
Right.
We're like, yeah, oh, by the way, so-and-so's kind of feeling more like this. And we're like, oh, okay, let's
and
handle
then
that.
and then the thing too is you just handle it. You go and attack it head on.
Hey, I heard you had this this incident or whatever, and you didn't think this was going down right. Yeah, let's fix that. Let's change it. What do you think we should do?
Like, I think when people start, whether it be someone's in the company's going through a personal issue and no one wants to talk about it, and it's affecting their performance at work, and no one wants to talk about it, they just brush it under the rug. And when people start seeing that from a management standpoint, from a business owner standpoint, they will do the same thing when they start seeing things in the business, in the team, how things need to be, they'll just brush it under the carpet. They'll be like, I can't talk about that. We haven't given each other enough trust to be able to talk about those private matters in their personal life, the private matters of, I don't think you're qualified enough to be in your job. You've been getting to work late, et cetera, et cetera. And then creating a culture that at 4 or 5 people, you don't have a massive team or anything, but creating a culture that when new people do hire, they they either come up to your zone, they come up to your level, or they're gonna get kicked out really fast.
Yeah, communication is key. Humility, honesty. Don't bring an ego to work. No one. That really doesn't work well at our company to have any sort of ego. Work needs to be a safe zone. It really does. And think about it. We all just work because we need to make money and provide for our families. Everybody's there for the same reason. We just want to get our job done and go home. So let's be an amazing team together and get stuff done so we can go live our lives.
And I think too, like, it's easy to point fingers as a business owner as far as your team. But at the end of the day, if your team's falling apart, almost all the time it's your fault. It is your fault. It's always your fault. Like, it starts at the top. If you aren't working hard enough, your people, you can't expect them to work hard. If you're not showing up early, leaving late, doing everything you can for the business, you can't expect them to be doing that. And I think so oftentimes it's hard for me to even tell business owners that because they're the ones communicating with me. But
Right.
I think if I talked to all the guys that work at this company or like had more context, like a lot of times it's like if there's an issue within a team, I would look internally within you as a person first.
Right.
Don't look at it as an external, like there's issues with the labor market or the my family that I hired or this person's background or they're too lazy. I would look internally in you as your individual self first, because 80 to 90% of the people who ask questions like this about team and culture and how they can create it within their company, the problem is actually with the business owner. It's not the people. Like, without leadership, people just, like, they're gonna follow the lowest standard within the company if they're not, like, a go-getter type A type personality. And those are hard to come by.
Yeah, so a business owner might say, well, how do I own everything that's going on and deal with it? I would recommend the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Bavin. They're Navy SEALs, and they talk a lot about that in the SEAL teams, but also bringing it into business. How to own things or take ownership of situations and issues and deal with them as a team and individually first.
So I kind of hope that helps the question.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I'd
Hang
say,
in there, Jessica.
Yeah, I'd say a team meeting that's very, very putting you in a very vulnerable spot and literally being aware that literally they could scream at you in that meeting.
Yeah.
If you give them that safe zone, but you need to be able to make sure they know they can scream at you and it's not going to cost them their job.
Yeah, even if you cry later or you just get really mad, it just.
But even crying, like, even in front of them, it's just
would
showing.
Be okay. Yes,
okay.
I guess.
You're showing you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you're putting your place in a spot that's like, hey, look, this is a safe
yikes,
zone.
That's heavy.
And that you care enough to, like, cry about it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So I think sometimes we just hide, our emotions and things. Like, even last week, we had a disagreement.
Yes.
About something, and you were angry about it.
Yes.
Which I heard about a couple days later from you. And so, even the way that we would, quote unquote, argue about that.
We ended the conversation. We said, and that, folks, is how you fight.
But
good.
But it just, making sure even from that standpoint, then after the next day, I addressed the team and said, X, Y, and Z I've been doing wrong. And they see the level of accountability I put myself to in saying, hey, I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position and saying that as the leader I have been wrong. And then them knowing that I'm going to hold them to the same level of accountability.
Exactly.
Because if something's wrong with them and their performance, I'm going to come talk to them.
Yep. No, it's good.
So, all right, I hope that helped a little bit. You've been listening to the Landscape Business Course, but it has been transcribed now over to the Business Bootcamp podcast because I think it really, really does go across all industries. So I hope that helps someone today. And until next time, be great because nothing else pays.